volume data 2.1, let's put the Tube Archivist on a Synology NAS, which is your self-hosted YouTube media server. Basically, it lets you kind of create your own version of YouTube. You make subscriptions, it downloads them, and you can search them. So if you have a ton of content, it makes it a lot easier, and you don't have to sift through a bunch of stuff that's on YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. There's a lot more to it. You might have heard about it on the self-hosted podcast, which if you are for some reason listening to my YouTube channel, but not the self-hosted podcast, you're doing it all wrong. But it's a really good, if you're looking for a podcast that keeps on the pulse of the self-hosted world, I think the self-hosted podcast is a great one that you should be listening to. So anyways, let's get started. We're on tubearchivist.com. That is their homepage. And we're going to scroll down to this section here that says Project Documentation and click on the little document icon. So now we are on docs.tubearchivist.com. We are going to click on installation over here on the left-hand side, and then Docker Compose. We're going to scroll down and skip all of this pretty valuable text that somebody worked really hard to write. I'm going to skip right over it though, and then where it says save the dockercompose.yaml file, I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to open that up in a new tab actually. So here we have our dockercompose.yaml file, which as you can see, it's just a bunch of text. It's basically like instructions for an installation if I were to very oversimplify what a dockercompose.yaml file is. We're going to copy all that text though. You can click that button there, or you can highlight it all and copy it, whatever your preferred method of copying and pasting is. But we're going to hit up our Synology NAS here and get it going. So to install Tube Archivist, we only need Container Manager, which if you don't have, you can come up here to the Package Center and type in Container Manager, and it will show up in the store. If it's not showing up for you, that means that it is not available on your model of Synology NAS, but Google around and see if maybe somebody's gotten it to work. And I have 5 updates I really need to install. Not going to do it right now. So let's click on Container Manager. We are going to scoot this over because I need some space, but we're going to click on Project, Create, and I am going to give this a project name of Tube Archivist, but you can call it whatever you want. You can call it YouTube, which is a total lie. I'm just going to call mine Tube Archivist and keep it simple. And then under path, let's make a path for all these Tube Archivist related files to live. I'm going to click on File Station. I'm going to click into my Docker share. I'm going to delete this folder called Tube Archivist and this id.txt because those are both not part of a failed version tutorial I just did. So we're going to create a new folder called Tube Archivist and go back to Container Manager. For path, set path, we're going to click Docker, Tube Archivist, that folder that we just created. I'll click Select. And then for source, we are not uploading. We are creating a dockercompose.yaml file, and we are going to paste in all of that Docker Compose type that we got from their GitHub right over here. So back here, we need to make a couple of changes. I'm going to go through this a little bit out of order, but I think it'll be the quickest and easiest way that makes the most sense. I'm not a guy that makes a lot of sense, but let's see what I can do here. First, under ports. If you don't know what this means, don't do anything. If for some reason you know that you're using port 8000 on a Synology app already, you can change this to whatever you want. You could type in 18,000. I think the limit is up to 60-something thousand, but you've got a wide range of port numbers to use. Just don't use 80 or 443. Don't use those two. Probably don't use 8080 or 3000 either, but 18,000 would work fine. This is how we're going to access Tube Archivist. I'll go over that later, but just something to point out. Next, under volumes, we're going to change all the volumes. And we're going to do that real simply. We're just going to add a period / in front of our volume. So I'm going to type in period / media, period / cache. And basically what this is you see this colon here, and then it says / YouTube / cache. This is for Docker, and you don't have to worry about that, but when Tube Archivist launches, it's going to have a YouTube folder and a cache folder inside of it, but instead of it using what's in those folders, it's asking for a folder that's on your machine. So let's go ahead and create that folder. I'm going to go to File Station. Let's click on Docker, Tube Archivist, and let's create a folder called Media, and let's create another folder called Cache. And that should do it for those two. If you're confused about this period, it's basically shorthand for wherever I'm at. It's kind of the same thing as typing this in, Docker Tube Archivist Media. Actually, in front of it would also be volume 1, depending on where you're at. But wherever this Docker Compose file is, if you type in period / under a volume, it's going to use its location as that shortcut. So I'm just going to keep it as period / medium period / cache. All right, sorry, I'm doing this a little bit after the fact. I'm pasting this into the video. I don't do that very often, but I just wanted to let you know this media folder here, this is where all your downloads are going to go. So it's if you're subscribing to a YouTube channel, it's going to download a lot of YouTube videos from that channel. So if you didn't want to put it in this folder, you can specify where you want it. So if I click on File Station and click on Docker, YouTube, let's just say instead of, right now it's going to this media folder in here, but maybe I wanted to go into this folder called YouTube DL, short for YouTube Downloads. I would just click Properties. I'm going to copy this location and I will paste that location in here. And in this case, I cannot use the period because that will not send it to the correct spot. But you can do that for any folder on your Synology NAS. The user that you specify here, by the way, just make sure that that's the same user. So if I right-click YouTube DL's properties, I can see that volume data 21 is the owner, and I know that volume data 21 can write files to that folder, so I'm not going to get any permission issues. But if you happen to put it in a way different folder and somebody else owns it, just be aware that that could cause permission issues, and you might need to change the permissions for that folder so that the correct user can write files to that folder. We're gonna add two more if I keep scrolling down. So this is the section for, see how it says services here? And then Tube Archivist. Basically anything lining up with Tube Archivist is gonna be a service. So we've got Tube Archivist. There is another service called Archivist Redis, which is just our database. And then this has a volume also. So I'm gonna type in // and then we'll have Redis. So I'll go back to my Tube Archivist folder and create a folder called Redis. And then there is one more volume. So we are now under the service Archivist ES. And it should have a volume for ES. So I'm going to type in // in front of ES, and we will make that folder as well. So create folder ES. If this is a little confusing, by the way, I'm going to put Tube Archivist as one of the more complicated installs. I don't know if it's quite up there with Nextcloud or Image, but it's in that league. There's a lot going on here. So don't feel bad if this is very confusing to you, even if you watch some of my other videos. All right, so we've got that going, which means we could delete all of these volumes because we're not using Docker volumes. If you want to know what Docker volumes are, you can research that, but I'm not going to do that. So we'll scroll up because we have to make a couple of other changes. Okay, with our folders, we are going to run into a permissions issue, and it's going to cause this ES program to not function. And this took me a while to figure out, and it's because I'm not a thorough reader. Had I been reading thoroughly, I would have figured it out. But you see how if you click these three dots, you can check owner, and your owner is probably going to be whatever user you're making this stuff up with. So in my case, my owner is volume data 21. Let's go to Tube Archivist, the documentation, and we're going to click on Synology. And under Synology, if I skip ahead to step 8, it's going to tell me, yes, I need to change permissions. CLI required. CLI is short for command line. We're going to skip command line. We're going to trick it. We don't have to use command line. So let's go down here to these steps here, step 6 and 7. It is saying that we have to run a command saying chown 999-100 redis, and then step 7, chown 1000 ES. And basically all this is saying is I need to change the permissions of the folder called Redis and the folder called ES so that user 999 in group ID 100 is the owner of Redis, and 1000 is the owner of ES. So let's do that. Let's go back to our Synology NAS. This is where it gets, I would love to explain it, but I want this video to be under 15 minutes. So let's go to Control Panel. And Control Panel, what this will let us do, we'll go into Task Scheduler. Task Scheduler will actually let us run commands as though we were using command line. So this is a little bit easier than running through command line. By all means, if you know command line and you can run those sudo chowns real quick, go ahead and do it. But I'm going to do this because I think this will be easier for most people. So under Control Panel, Task Manager, or it's Task Scheduler. I think it's Task Scheduler. Task Scheduler. Let's go to Create, Schedule Task, User-Defined Script. We are going to call this chown for Tube Archivist, or you can call it whatever you want. Under User, I am going to actually run this as root, and then I am going to uncheck enabled because this is not a schedule task. If I was going to run this a bunch of times, on a schedule, I would keep this checked, but I don't need to do that. I don't think it'll mess you up if you keep that checked, but we're going to uncheck it. Under task settings, let's run our commands, and our commands are going to be these two here. So step number 6, chown 999-100 redis, boom. And then I'm going to type in space, ampersand, space, and then let's copy step number 7, which is chown 1000 ES. Boom. This will still not work. And the reason for that is we need to specify the location of these folders. So let's go back into File Station. Let's click on Docker, Tube Archivist, and let's right-click Redis, Properties, and I'm going to copy this location. Scoot you over, so I got to go right back to you. And instead of Redis, I'm now going to paste that entire location. So yours is probably going to look like mine unless it's on a different volume, or you put your folder somewhere else. And then we'll do the same thing for this ES folder. So I'll go back into File Station. I'm just going to right-click ES, Properties. I'm going to copy your location, cancel. And then I will overwrite ES, so now I'll have the full location. So what's going to happen here is, as root, my Synology NAS is going to run this command. And then when it gets to the ampersand, basically this just says after I run a command, run the next command. So ampersand, after this command has been successfully run, it's going to run this command. And then chown, if you don't know, is just short for change ownership. So yeah, there is my very detailed, thorough explanation. If you want to know more about this, research chowning in Linux, but that's basically what we're doing. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK here. Just be aware that there are some consequences here. There could be some consequences. So really make sure that you typed in all that information correctly. So I'm going to click OK. And then it really it's making sure that you know what you're doing. So it's going to ask for you to type in your owner password. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to type in the password of my user volume data 21 and click submit. I'm going to click that specific command and I'm going to click run. And then it's going to ask me if I'm sure, and I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to exit out of Task Scheduler, even though I got to go back in a second. If I'm in this Tube Archivist folder, I'm going to click outside of it and click back in. The owners should update to 999 and 1000, and that command was successfully run. Pretty much. That's a fairly thorough way of making sure that it was run. Whew, okay, that's a lot. Don't worry, there's still more. There is still more. So let's go back up top here. Let's see what else we missed. Ports, I kind of covered that. Volumes, we got that. Okay, the URL, I'm going to skip over that. Some of this stuff you can change if you're running a reverse proxy and stuff, but I'm going to take it that you know enough about Docker to know that stuff. But let's keep it simple. Host UID and host GID. If you've done some of my tutorials before and you know how to get those ID numbers, you're just going to plug those in here. If you haven't, I'll teach you how to do it real quick. We'll just go to Control Panel, Task Scheduler. Let's create a schedule task, user-defined script. We're going to call this get ID. And then I'm going to uncheck enabled, and we're just running this as our normal user. We don't have to run this as root. I'm going to click on task settings, and then under user-defined script, I'm going to type in ID space greater than sign space. I'm going to click on File Station, right-click Docker, Properties. I'm going to copy the location of my Docker folder. Let me exit out of here. Okay. So back here, ID space greater than sign space, and I'm going to paste in that location and then type in /ID.txt. And basically all that's happening here is as volume data 21 or whatever user you're in right now, it's going to run a command called ID, which is going to get a bunch of useful numbers for us. And then it is going to create a text file that lists whatever this returns. So if that doesn't make sense, as much of this tutorial has not, I'm sure it'll make sense in a second. So I'll click OK. And then I will click Get ID and click the Run button and click OK. Exit out of Task Manager. If I go back into File Station and click on my Docker folder, I've now got an ID.txt file, which you can use a lot. So you might want to keep that around. That's why I always put it in the Docker folder so you know where it's at. If it's not showing up for you, just make sure that you click out of the Docker folder real quick and then back in. So let's double click ID.txt. I need this first number, UID, and the second number, GID. Your first number is probably different, but your GID, it's probably the same. Who are we kidding? That's probably the same. So let's go back into Container Manager. Let's change the UID to 1028 or whatever yours is. And then GID is going to be 100. Under TA host, I don't think that I have to change this, but I'm going to. If you go back into the documentation for Tube Archivist under Docker Compose, if I just search for, TA host right here, it's going to say change it to match the address of the machine you're running this on. So in my case, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to type in nightvision.local. Just this guy right up here, nightvision.local. So that is the name of my Synology NAS.local. If you want to use your IP address, that's also fine. I could also just type in 192.168.86.60. That is the IP address of my Synology NAS, and that will also work. I'm going to keep you as nightvision.local, though. If you don't know those numbers, you can click on this widget up here and make sure that system health is checked, and you should have both your server name, so you could just do your server name.local, or your IP address, which if it's not this guy, then it's probably one of these other LAN numbers, but most likely it's LAN number 1. Any other changes? Yes, okay. TA password and username. So I'm going to type in under username. This is just going to be the default login. So I'm just going to type in volume data 21. And then for password, we will make this very secure. So I'm going to type in Bitwarden password generator. And let's get us some passwords. We're going to need to make 2. So 14 characters is pretty good. I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because if you don't, click regenerate 5 times Everybody knows their password. I'm going to copy this guy, paste them in here. And now this is very important. There is an elastic password that says very secret. Let's change this. Let's regenerate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Copy a new password and paste a new password into here. There is another section that has elastic password. These really need to match. So make sure that whatever you're typing in here is going to be the same as where it has it elsewhere. So we are currently in our Tube Archivist service. Let's scroll down to, I think it's Archivist ES. Yes, here it's asking for the elastic password. Make sure that that password is the exact same as the one that you typed above. So there you go. We should be good. This should be everything you need. The last thing you might want to change is your time zone. There is so much stuff you could screw up here and this will mess up. So maybe you don't want to mess with anything, but if you know your time zone, you could change it too. So mine is New York, that's fine, but maybe you're in Los _Angeles, or maybe you are in Chicago. Oh, I think this has to be spelled pretty correctly. So there's a whole Wikipedia article that lists your correct time zones and will also match you up on countries, because I know some of you guys might be international. You're in Europe, Asia, Africa, wherever. There are different time zone parameters you need for that. But this might be useful because Tube Archivist does have schedules, so that might be important for you to have. But otherwise, we are good to go. Just make note of this first number here. Do not change the second number if you're changing ports, just this first one, but I kept this the same at 8,000. Just remember that. So we're going to click Next. I'm going to leave this unchecked and click Next, and then start the project once it is created and click Done. And there we go. So it's going to pull and extract and download all the files necessary to get Tube Archivist running. As this is going, just something that I thought was kind of funny. I was trying to see if I could use Docker programs with Quick Connect, and I believe that you cannot. But I did find this pretty funny Synology post where this guy is asking if it's possible, and someone says, it isn't really that complicated. You need DDNS configured to overcome dynamic IP, ISP, assigns, and port forwarding. Highly recommended to have an IP address reservation, blah, 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 blah. The original poster responds, this to me just read like this. It isn't that complicated. Tech ipsum blah, 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 blah. Hopefully you don't feel like that after watching my tutorials, but that is how I feel after reading a lot of instructions. I'm not that good at server stuff. Let's go back to our NAS though. Let's check the status. All right, we're starting our services. We got an exit code 0, which is good. Doesn't say error, it says exit. And then Project Tube Archivist was successfully built. Great job by you. Okay, we will close out of here. We got a green light and we are good. And the way that we access this is with that port number. So if you forgot your port number already, just click on Project, double click Tube Archivist, YAML configurations. Look who it is. And then under ports, it's just that first port number before the colon. After the colon, remember, you don't change that. That is for Docker. You don't worry about that. But this first guy is how we access it. And the way we access it is we're just going to type in either our server name .local :8000, or you can type in your server's IP address :8000. So let's try that out. We're going to go to nightvision.local :8000. Now this will not work for two reasons. One, I don't think it's done setting up yet. And two, I have it saying HTTPS, but this is actually just an HTTP app right now as we have it set up. So that is how I'm going to have to access it. Let's see if it works. Not ready yet. I'm going to give this a minute. Do not freak out if it's not working. I know that internally you're freaking out. Give it a couple minutes and things should be up and running. You can also go through the logs if you want. If you know how to do container logs, you can click on container. These are the 3 containers that make up Tube Archivist. So if you double click one and click log, it'll tell you what's going on. So I can see it's waiting for ES, which is probably just taking a minute. ES is short for Elasticsearch, which is a little unique to Tube Archivist, at least for programs that I use. I bet a million things use it though. All right, here we go. We got it up and running. I just had to wait a minute and it is up. And then for username, I'm just going to type in volume data 21 and then password. I don't remember my password. Let me go back to that YAML. Let's go back to the YAML file. Project, Tube Archivist, YAML configurations. So there's my username and here's my password. Let me paste in the password. I'm gonna remember me. And we are in, and you now have the Tube Archivist set up. So if you wanna get started, I think what happens, we're gonna click on channels, and if you add a channel, it's probably gonna start to download the first 50 YouTube videos of each channel. I think there might be a setting where you can adjust that, but just be warned, that's what's gonna happen. So if I click on plus, let's subscribe to a channel. Let's do a really good one. Let's do an interesting. Oh, this one looks pretty good. I'm just gonna do FitMC's channel. That was an autoplay. All right, here we go. FitMC, let's just say you're a big Minecraft fan, you subscribe to FitMC. I'm gonna click subscribe and that's gonna add his YouTube channel in here. All right, we've got a task completed successfully. If I click on downloads, I think we can rescan subscriptions. I believe what's going to happen is that it will scan these periodically, maybe once a day or something. I think you can adjust that in the settings, but if I rescan subscriptions right now, it's going to start to download everything on FitMC's channel because he has well over 50 YouTube channels. Not YouTube channels. He has well over 50 videos. So that's what, oh, you're extracting 100? All right. It's going to extract a lot. And if you're wondering where these files are going, we can go back to our Synology NAS. Let's go into File Station, Docker, Tube Archivist, and it's going to all end up in this media folder here when it is done. So I can keep an eye on that, and that is where all those YouTube downloads will be. If you wanted to specify a different folder, you can. I think you can just go into Container Manager, Project, double-click Tube Archivist, YAML configurations, and then where it says media here, if you had somewhere else on your Synology NAS that you want to put that, you can just stop this container or stop this project, make a change here, and then start it back up, and then it's going to use your new folder. Or you could have done that before, and I probably would have saved you some time, but I forgot to mention that. So yeah, maybe I will paste this section in the right place in the video. But yeah, that is what you can do if you want to put these media files into a different folder. But yeah, there you go. You have installed the Tube Archivist. There's a lot to mess around with here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and there's not that much to this. It's not a super complicated program, but go back over to the Tube Archivist webpage, read through their documentation to get a good idea. They've got a whole FAQ section, download page. They've got everything on here that you'll need to know about it. They've also got a pretty active GitHub, and I think they even have a Discord. Hopefully this wasn't a bunch of gibberish to you, and this actually made some sense, and I really hope you're able to get this working. Good luck to you!